Hey everybody, Payments Professor here, and welcome to the Payments Podium. We've been having a series going where we've been discussing what payment associations are, what their role is, who they are, and what they do. Well, today I want to welcome Sean Carter from Neach. Sean, welcome to the Payments Podium.
Thank you, Kevin. Honored to be here.
All right, well, Sean, I don't know if you've listened to a Payments Podium podcast before, but listeners know the next question or the first question that's coming, which is real important because a lot of people out there are trying to go, hey, do I really want to work in payments? How do I get started in payments? So the question I like to ask is, how did you get started in payments? Now, I got some history with you, so I know you've got a unique story when it comes to getting your job, first getting going in payments to becoming a CEO, which is really amazing of, a payment association. But how did you get started in payments?
Yeah, so my start is actually pretty funny. So I was starting at a milk company out of business school, and I was in the accounts payable receivable department, and we were actually working on a project to electronify receivables and payables. At the same time, I was still working part-time with Joe Casali, who was here at Neach. He was my boss at the pizza place, and we talked about what he did for work, and I'm like, oh, this electronic payments, that's what we're doing at my company, and a spot opened up at Neach, and I came here 24 years ago, and then obviously I went through learning the rules and getting involved with Nacha, being the head trainer, doing all that good stuff, and 7 years ago, luckily the board elected me to be the next CEO of the organization, so it's been a great 24 years.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. First of all, that shocked me. 7 years. It's hard to believe it's been 7 years because I remember it like it was just yesterday. All right. Well, we got to keep going, though. One of the most important things to answer today is who is Neach? You mentioned them. Who's Neach?
So Neach is a regional payment association, now one of 10. We cover the Northeast region, so in theory, our imaginary line, right, is from Maine to southern Connecticut. We do have some members outside of our territory, but priority financial institutions from Maine to southern Connecticut. We also have some corporate memberships, which are more national, but our primary role is with the FIs in New England.
Okay. So you basically serve New England when it comes to electronic payments.
Yeah, serve and advocate and educate them. Yeah, all things payments.
All right. The word advocate, when it comes to advocating for on behalf of the financial institutions or some of the third parties or businesses like you said that you do work with, some at least, what does advocating for these institutions in the New England area really mean? Like, what do you do for them?
So I think there's two major things we do on the advocacy side. First and foremost is give people a voice, right? So whether that's we're responding to a Nacha request for comment, FTC open comment, CFPB open comment, anything where a regulator or a governing body is looking for input or suggesting change, we go out to our members and get their thoughts on that to make sure they're represented, to make sure people understand. The other part of advocacy, equally as important, is educating some of those same people, right? Whether it's locally talking to groups here that might have some influence, whether it's in the states or local governments to see what's going on related to payments. We sometimes get questions from the banking associations about, hey, how would this impact some of your members, and then we educate them on why such and such would be a good idea or maybe wouldn't work as you think it would. So it's two things. It's voice and then educating those that need to hear their voice.
So by that advocacy then, does that mean that you get to be the voice, but also you get to allow institutions in New England to have a voice, to actually be able to be part of the process when it comes to the rules and regulatory changes that are taking place? So it's not like it's just a system to where they just have to do what they're told. With you involved, with Neach there, you're actually able to give them some decision making?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we structure our comments in three sections. One is the members' voices. Second is staff voices, right? Because we're not all the same human being. We have our own thoughts, and then we have an organizational response. And sometimes those aren't always the same, because as an organization, there's things that we may talk about our board with that we want to capture that might be in contrast to what some of the members are saying, and then staff I'm a big believer in our experts having the ability to weigh in on everything. In fact, if you have ever watched our Neach podcast, Joe and I have a lot of different views on a lot of different things, but I think that's important. I mean, you only learn, right, from hearing how others think, right? And so when you were a kid, you listened to how the teacher thought, right? That's how you learn. And so that's kind of how we do that. So the way we go out and get our member voices is we have a standing group, right? That's a committee that we work with directly. We go directly to our FI member institutions, and then we use our social media to throw out questions to the audience as a whole. And sometimes we'll take the most pertinent things and just do polling to get a sense of where people are at, or if, like the last round of requests for comments from Nacha, which was really critical, we make sure everybody's getting that stuff, because there's going to be big impact depending on how that comes out.
So for those listening, if I'm getting this right, Sean, what you're saying is it is not a situation in the U.S. where it's just all of a sudden, here's the rules, regulations, go deal with it. It is really a situation to where with organizations like Neach, a nonprofit organization that represents financial institutions, you go and educate your people in your territory on what is happening, what the change is. You then hear their voice of what they think how it would impact them, what they would like to see happen. You take the comments from your staff, and then also as an organization, you give that feedback so that it has impact on the rule changes that happen in the world of electronic payments.
Yeah, it's actually a really good system, right? Because the 10,000 FIs are all different, right? They're all different in size, different cores, different core competencies, right? So one rule may affect you one way, and to another institution, it could be a death blow, right? So, and I think the regulators do a great job of giving open comment. I know there's some naysayers that always say the answers are already there. Kevin, I think you and I used to get mad sometimes and say, I think they already had the answer, but I do believe it's a fair process. Being on some committees of Nacha, they look at everything that people say, and even the federal government stuff with the regulators, they'll put out, here's why we're still going in this direction. We heard your concerns, but here's why we don't think it's an issue. And that's all you can ask for, right? That's fairness, right? That's the definition of fairness. You don't always get what you want, but at least you get some input. And by doing that and understanding their thought process, it allows you as a financial institution to start planning on what you need to do next, because you get those little nuggets of, here's really what they want us to be doing, and we can work towards that. Because sometimes what they're asking you is not ultimately the true ask, right? And so sometimes having this give and take in an open comment process, you reveal exactly the intent of what the regulators are trying to get at. And for most FIs, Kevin, you know this, that's all they need. Just tell them what you want them to do, and they're going to work towards that, right? A lot of the other stuff is irrelevant to them. Just tell me what I need to do, and we'll do it. They're so busy that they need that. Just do these three things, right? And I think we can help them get to that.
And I think both of us would agree, because we've experienced it. The overall goal is really to strengthen and secure the U.S. electronic financial industry in itself and all the channels. And at the end of the day, to really be able to protect the account holder as well. And I believe that's the goal. And it takes a little time to get it done sometimes, but everybody also does get a voice in it too.
Yeah. And again, you're right. The absolute goal is to make sure a payment can get from here to there without anybody getting ripped off. And that's as simple as I keep it with folks, right? If we're doing things that aren't going to help it get from A to B safely, what are we talking about, right? Because everything else is just noise, and it distracts you from the perfectly stated goal you mentioned.
Well, and I got to go to wrestling payments now since you brought it up, because I have told people for years, they're like, what gets you started doing YouTube and a podcast? And I told them it was actually people overhearing conversations at the bar. All right. We were, us payments professionals would get together. We'd have heated and passionate conversations, and people are like, that should be recorded. And that's what, ended up being the Payments Podium. So you mentioned wrestling payments. Could you explain to listeners what wrestling payments is?
Yeah, so I got to give Joe Casali on Neach here. This is his brain trust. We wanted to get into podcasting, and when we talked about what are we going to name this, right? Both of us love wrestling, WWE. The fake kind, as I would say, not the real, like college wrestling. But when you think about what's going on today, people are wrestling with how they're going to manage their payments business. So that's kind of where we got the title. It's a play on words of something that we both enjoy, which is the WWE wrestling. But yeah, so we've had some, we do some really cool podcasts. We just did one on some of the conspiracy theories about what FedNow is and what it isn't, and it's kind of interesting to see people on Facebook posting FedNow's a CBDC, and it's like, Uncle, no, it's not. It's not the same thing. Or when are you getting your FedNow card? Which I'm still waiting for mine. I can't wait to get my FedNow card. I want to. Is it going to have a logo? Whose logo's on it? So we've done some cool topics. We did one on the RFCs as well, me and Joe, because we have some disagreements in what I would answer versus what he would answer. So we use that as a way to educate the members on those proposals. So we've had a great time with it. We had some really cool guests. Right, we're all in such a great industry. All the people we know, and everybody just wants to help. Everybody just wants to give someone else that extra piece of knowledge that they have, right, and get questions that they may have answered. So it's been great.
And I love that you mentioned that. We are all out here to help. I've had some of the conspiracy theorists actually say that I'm just trying to get rich, and I'm like, I'm still waiting for that check to come in, or the Fed now, whatever, to be there. It ain't there yet. But if people want to listen to Wrestling Payments or find you on social media, since we're on the topic, where do they go?
They can go to our Neach LinkedIn page, look us up on LinkedIn, or they can go to neach.org and subscribe to the podcast from there. It's all out there. Some of the back episodes. Really, really good stuff.
And that's neach.org for all of you listening.
Yes.
Okay. I know something else you mentioned when we were talking about the proposals is you talked about educating members. And I believe education is one of the main things that you are able to offer as a payment association. Can you tell us a little bit of what your education looks like, what you're offering? I'm sure it's a lot of different things, but what would somebody who were to become a member of Neach, what could they expect when it comes to the world of electronic payments education?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll start with the name. So we kept ACH in our name, but we used to be officially legally the New England Automated Clearinghouse, and we've gone away from that. We're just Neach because our training has gone away. We used to be just ACH focused, but now we're training on everything from ACH card to FedNow, RTP. So we do a variety of different training. So we have for our certification programs, the APRP, the AAP. We have our Pro series of tools, the ACH Pro and the Risk Pro and Check Pro for those looking to be an NCP. So that's one way of learning. We also have your standard webinars that we do like everyone else does that are recorded. You take them at your own leisure on demand. We have some free foundational courses that every member gets access to. So these are for that person that's really just starting out in operations or in risk. What is this payments thing everybody's telling me to learn about? We have some foundational courses. We just announced at our own conference in May that we are developing what's called a Neach University. And I can't really give too much now, but I would encourage everybody to follow what we're doing, because it's outstanding work, and it's actually going to be for the broader community, business schools, corporations, not just financial institutions. So it's really exciting that we're able to take and have different paths of learning. But at the core, again, we're just trying to help, right? Because we all know how hard our members work, right? Our operations folks and cash management folks at our member FIs, they cannot possibly know everything that they need to know. And so we just give them that little more that they need to be better at their job and help them as needed with the support. And obviously the accreditations are a big part of anybody's career, and we take that very seriously. I know I've been blessed to be an AAP, an NCP, in about a month I'll be an APRP. You had the same things. They've done wonders for our career, and we want everybody to have that, right? So we take that really seriously. We have great tools to help people train. We do the boot camps. It's an amazing thing to see. Like all the other PAs, I'm going to throw out love to all the PAs here that you're going to be talking to. Our pass rates for people that study with us are much better nationally than when people don't study with a PA. It's just facts. Year over year, those are facts. So I think it's really important to not only help someone in their job as a trade association, which Neach is, but also to help people in their careers, right? Somebody wants to move up, and if we can help them, and sometimes you feel bad when somebody gets so good that they leave one member and go to a next, but it just gives someone else an opportunity to step up. So
I agree. That's a wonderful way to look at it. And I got to say, that is a lot to also unpack. Anybody's listening probably had to rewind a couple times to go through the laundry list of things that you got. And like the Neach University, that definitely caught my attention, because I got to say, Neach, and especially since you've taken the leadership, is on the forefront of doing things a little bit differently, finding new ways to be able to really help the industry. So that's great to hear, something I'll be looking for. And I got to give a Payments Professor endorsement for the Pro Series. The tools that you have built to be able to help people to get certification are amazing. I can even say it's been over 20 years now, but I used one of those to get my AAP. And if folks, even if you're not a member of Neach, you can still go purchase those. You may be able to get them through your payment association. If not, you can get them from neach.org directly. They are great resources for getting certified. You mentioned your conference. When is your conference?
So we have two, actually. We have our big blowout Neach traditional conference in May every year in person. And then we also have one coming up in November, which is more of our innovating payments conference, which is a really more about payment strategy and getting people educating on what's out there. So we do two major events. The May one's in person. The November one is a virtual event still. We'll probably at some time convert that to in person, but just two different core audiences, right? So the May one is our core Neach everyday users, and the fall is we get a lot of fintech participation, and those are the people that are just trying to see what's on the edge, right? And Kevin, you're historically been a great speaker at the Neach conference, highly rated, right? We love having you, and the members have always enjoyed having you there. So thank you for helping us.
Oh, absolutely. Your conference is one of those that falls in that fun category. And, a lot of people will be like, fun payments conference? Oh, you got to go. You got to show up. In May, it's great. It's usually at a very nice location, too. Mm-hmm. So you get to enjoy the, New England atmosphere. And I get to hear people talk about Pak the Ka and all of that. So I absolutely love when I get up there. And on your conferences too, I'm sure, it's a hot topic right now. We already mentioned it, FedNow. And I know a lot of people are going, what is FedNow? How do I use it? What's it going to do for me? Where do I learn more? Can you give us a little bit on what Neach is doing to be able to educate people on FedNow?
Yeah, so we're doing a couple of different things. So we worked obviously on some of the Fed committees and the subgroups as they were doing the revamping of the nation's payment system, so to speak. We worked with a group of PAs that worked with the Fed to create some train-the-trainer materials for our members. And actually, we're starting that shift to try to teach people more operationally about what it is, right? Because although we still got to answer what is it, should I be doing it, there's enough FIs that are committed, and we did some surveying of our members that we'll share you those results, Kevin. You can put on your different sites. People in New England are ready. They want to sign up to be receivers and senders. And it's really not that strange because we have a lot of RTP participants in the New England region. So we're trying to make that transition not from just what is it. We did the podcast on what it isn't, which I hope people go and watch. Yeah. But I tell you, we share a lot of stuff. The Fed is putting out some great stuff. There was just one I just read on, actually I had it here. What is FedNow, right? FedNow service takes instant payments to a new level. Great article published on July 10th. And if you're like a novice, this is the article for you. I think it was Connie Tien wrote it from the Fed.
Yes.
It's just amazing. This is as simple and as basic as you could get to tell somebody something so significant and exciting, right? It's weird because you're talking about this awesome thing in very plain terms, but that's what we got to do for the banks, and we have to start doing that for the back end, right? Because now the questions are, okay, my bank signed me up. What does this mean? And I saw you did one on what does instant settlement actually mean, right?
Yeah.
People need to know this stuff now, right? And so we're starting to make that shift through our traditional webinars, having speakers from the Fed at our events, sharing stuff you put out is another way that we help the members. So it's time, I think, to start shifting from the what to the how. And we'll still keep that what there because it's important, but the how, people are getting ready, and they're and it's gonna be exciting. I mean, this is exciting.
I got to go there and ask a couple questions with you, like we were still sitting at the bar a few years ago.
Yeah.
Number one, and I think it's important that people hear, especially some of the conspiracy people out there, to understand that in the Federal Reserve banking system, there are so many different departments, so many different people. So like Jerome Powell, don't know him, never met him, haven't even been in the same room as him. And the people that I've worked with at the Federal Reserve Bank, when it comes to the building of the FedNow program, are amazing people. They care about the U.S. payment system. They care about the people who are actually going to be using this and benefiting from making these instant payments. Would you share that opinion as well? As it's not what you think when you think classic government at all. It's not what you see in the news. Not the people that are actually building and making the FedNow program and out there advertising it too.
I think one of the great things, if you look at some of the goals of FedNow, financial inclusion, getting people money that they need quicker, right? I mean, there's so many examples of how this is going to improve lives, whether you're a gig worker and you want to get paid instantly, or if you're a bar owner and you want to get your cash out receipts to pay your doorman. I was a doorman for a number of years at multiple bars. I would have loved to not get a paycheck and have to come back the next week to get it. Pay me when I leave, right? I'm taking the beating that night for your bar. I want to get paid, right? So I think there's a lot of great ambitious things in FedNow, and overall too, right? We know this, Kevin, right? There's going to be some things that are challenges with FedNow. Whenever you're moving money, this just happens. But if you think about this, is just the launch, right? Imagine with these great programmers and people working on this program, once they learn a little bit, right? Just like they're doing at the clearinghouse. Let's give the clearinghouse credit too. They're learning and they evolve the product, whether it's the fraud aspect, fighting fraud, changing rules if you need to. This is just the first step. And I mean, the product specs look great right now, right? What the system can do. But I don't want people to think that this is what it's going to be forever. They're going to take and learn, just like we've done in every other payment system. I would argue the check system maybe didn't make as many changes or when it should have, but I think every other system has evolved, right, and has been able to withstand some turbulent times. So this is not to say this is going to remove every financial barrier for people, but it is going to make a difference.
I say it's going to be an addition, and it's going to be an alternative to things that are there.
Yep.
And if we look at, like you just mentioned, the growth of some of these, I remember, ACH used to just be, you mean direct deposit? And that was about all it was used for. Then it grew to be so much more. People listening, you probably use ACH in ways you don't even realize, even though you work in the industry. And then when same day ACH first came out, we were all like, well, you can use it for these 3 use cases. And now there's dozens and dozens of use cases. And I think FedNow will do the same thing. And I know too, if there's people out there, especially in the New England area, that are thinking, I want to be able to go live with FedNow, do they need to think about doing risk assessments, what it's going to look like, and doing audits? I mean, maybe beyond just FedNow in any payment system. And where can they go for help in doing that?
Yeah, so I actually believe you do have to do a risk assessment. I think you and I are on the same page. I think it's in the FFIEC requirements, right, that you do a risk assessment to
any new product or service.
Any new product or service. So I do believe people need to do that. Again, a risk assessment, it doesn't have to be this major big production, right? It's just looking at what you're going to be offering through that service and what are your risks to your organization. So we can certainly help people. We have a for-profit subsidiary, Neach Payments Group, that does consulting, this type of work. But I do think it's important that people look at that and how does it mix with everything else you're doing. Because you may be gung-ho to go FedNow and you might not need it, right? As a sender, of course you're going to want to receive, but maybe your cash management customers are happy with the current set of products, right? And that's okay, right? It's just about, like you mentioned, options and choices, right? If we believe in free markets like we all say we do, you got to have choice, right? You got to give people different options, and then there's going to be use cases nobody's thought about. I know the Faster Payments Council, which you work with, I think they have like 130 something listed on their website of potential use cases.
I've got a list of 300.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? I mean, and there's a lot of groups working like that. So let's give a shout out to the FPC, right?
Right.
They've done a great job with some of the stuff. Reed and that group have done such a great work. We were so happy they formed. We were a founding member of the Faster Payments Council because there needs to be somebody working on this stuff because it is that important. But yeah, I think, when you think of auditing too, I don't know what the specific audit requirements are, I'll be honest, of FedNow, but the internal audit groups are going to have to come up with something. The RTP rules have a standard and an audit required, but again, the question is what should be included in that, right? And there's a checklist, right? And there's things you need to do. I would imagine FedNow is going to evolve to that. I can't see regulators allowing people.
Well, I gotta say, I got a video on it, and it's really, it's just with all Fed line products, all you're required to do is meet the Fed Quality Assurance, Resilience and Assurance Program. As long as you meet that, which you're attesting that you're safe and secure, you're meeting Fed's requirements because that's just how they do that one. But I would add to it, because you and I agree on this, you still should do an audit because an audit will help to make sure that you keep doing everything moving forward safely and securely. And that way you're protecting your financial institution and your account holders.
Yeah, and again, making sure I'm working correctly with the Fed is one thing. Auditing whether my employees on the backside for my customers are doing the right thing, those are two different checks. So I do agree with you. I think there has to be, and again, it doesn't have to be this massive production. I know people freak out when you hear audit, risk assessment, and I think the challenge is getting people to understand those things are tools for you in your business. They're not negatives. They're not chores. They're actually tools to help you get better.
It's like car insurance. It's there to protect you.
Yep. It's going to help.
All right, Sean, I got to tell you, too, I'm still stuck on 7 years. All right. And it's been 7 years since you've been there. And this brings up a question I like to ask people, too. There's a lot of people that listen to the podcast that are new into the electronic payments industry, or there are people that are looking to advance their careers. And you already mentioned certification, but I look at you and how you have advanced your career and how you take the advancement of your staff's career very seriously. So what advice would you give to those people listening that want to go to that next level in electronic payments, whether it's at their bank, their credit union, maybe even in a payment association or something like that? What should they do to be able to improve their careers?
I would say what worked for me was getting engaged at the Nacha level with the regulators, do networking, follow, read, right? I think there's a lot of things that you can set yourself apart in this if you are willing to do that, right? And so you and I are both well-accomplished speakers. Everybody invites us to speak, right? So I think there's professional development around public speaking and things of that nature. But from a content standpoint, my years on RMAG with Nacha and the Rules and Operations Committee, I've done multiple terms on both. There's the amount of intelligence in those meetings that you learn from just other people, and I say this to Nacha all the time, when I start on an RMAC group and I look around, I hear that first conversation, I'm like, this is brilliant, right? These people are dedicated, they see it from all different angles, so you start to absorb all of that. So when you're at your own bank or your own credit union that may be stuck in a way of doing things, you can say, hey, I was at this meeting, let's try this. This way is not working. I've heard other people do it this way, and it, again, that's the way to get noticed at an institution, is to make a difference. But you have to have the confidence comes from the knowledge that you gain from these things. So that would be my recommendation to those folks, is just get plugged in. And if you love payments, we all love payments. We grew up with a group of PA people that really loved payments, right? We had great mentors in the PAs. Some of them are no longer with us, but we had great mentors, and hopefully people like us can be the mentors for the next people and show how exciting a career in payments can actually be, because it is. I mean, we get to travel. I've been to places I would have never been. I've met so many wonderful people and just learned so much. So Like when you're at a party and people start talking about what their bank is or isn't doing, so many times I jump in and I'm like, no, that's an unrealistic expectation. They're not supposed to be doing that. They're not going to do that for you, and they shouldn't be, right? So you get to defend a whole industry every once in a while, which is pretty good stuff.
Oh, well, I got to say, this has been really good stuff. And Sean, thank you for coming on the Payments Podium. This has been a great discussion, folks. I couldn't agree more. Get engaged, start networking. If you want to be a public speaker, work on those skills. There's a huge demand, more than you might think, out there in the industry to have some good speakers, because some of us, are moving on and retire from time to time, like Sean was saying, and you can make friends. I can attest to this, that I can go almost anywhere in this country and I've got friends in almost every state because of being involved in electronic payments. Guys, if you're listening and you want to go find out more about wrestling payments, Neach.org, Neach.org. You can also find out about their tools to be able to help with accreditation. You can get in touch with Sean. You can find Sean Carter. He's going to be on LinkedIn as well. And if you have any trouble getting to anybody there or anything, just email me, Kevin@paymentsprofessor.com, and I'll be glad to help. And also, if there's a topic, if there's a speaker, somebody you think needs to take the Payments Podium to share their ideas, let me know, Kevin@paymentsprofessor.com, and I'll do my best to make sure that they get a chance to take the podium and share their thoughts and, well, educate all of us. But for now, I gotta say, class dismissed.